close your eyes. And today we're going to do like a humming sound. The humming sound is, "Voo," and this is going to help us reset our nervous system and calm us down. Relax. Okay. Our mother is an immigrant, from the Philippines, born and raised in the Philippines, or born in the Philippines and raised up to 23 or 24 years old. Then she moved to America. So a lot of her upbringing is in America also, but she is an immigrant. What do you feel about migration? I know you live in Europe, and especially Southern Europe, where there is a lot of migration going on, and there's a lot of animosity toward immigrants and whatnot. You know, I want to hear your thoughts about immigration and migration.
Well, to be honest with you, Rich, I think that things are saying all based on the packaging, how we present things to society.
Mhm.
When we think about the British who go to Malta, or the British who go to India, or the Americans who go to Europe, they're considered expatriates. You know what I'm saying? Whereas saying you think about Syrians, or or Ukrainians at the moment. You know what I'm saying? Or people from Africa, from Burkina Faso, who are considered immigrants. I think that the ideal of immigration is very, very vast. And I think that, saying we really, really confuse what immigration is. Um, like a lot of people here in Europe don't think of me as immigrants, but I am. You know what I'm saying? Most of my British friends don't think of me as immigrant, but they think of me as an expatriate, like
Mhm.
most of them are. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But really, what's the difference? We have to think about
So what
saying
is
when
the
we think,
difference? Yeah, tell me what
what
is
is
the
the difference exactly? And it's kind of like it's kind of like when we think about um, I remember one of the phrases, one of the sentences that was said, saying that was taught to me. Probably it's a really common thing, but I remember the first time I heard it was when I was in the military, and it was that same shit, different toilet, and I kind of took it on as saying like a lot of situations are very, very, very similar, and even we look throughout history, a lot of situations are very, very similar, but we put different masks on them. What I'm saying, or we give them different names. Because technically, expatriates and an immigrant have zero differences when it comes to saying what they are. Saying, obviously, for example, a person might say, "Oh yeah, I'm a English expatriate in Malta because Malta was a British colony."
Mhm.
Saying for 150 years, or I'm a British expatriate in India because India was an English colony for 113 years, or I'm an expatriate because I'm American, and saying that I'm in the Philippines, saying and I'm and it's been an English colony or been an American colony, after the British left it alone, after they took it from the Spanish, and kind of gave it to Americans. Saying a bit before or during the Second World War. I'm not gonna, delve into the the specifics of what it is, but we kind of, when people see me, and it, saying this, I don't know if you deal with this in LA, because we don't look, for example, for you don't look African American, even though
Mhm.
African Americans are and have been, saying mixed, saying throughout, the past 250, 300 years.
Mhm.
You don't look like the typical, African American. You know what I'm saying? And when people look at me, they're like, "Are you Cuban? Are you? You know, what I'm saying you're not. You're not.
Cuban, baby.
You're not Senegalese. You're not Senegalese or Nigerian." I'm like, dude, I'm American. They're like, and dudes like, "Oh,
Cuban,
okay,
I
that's
am
cool."
that is Cuban, baby.
Exactly, exactly. And they're like, "Oh, that's cool. Okay." I said, "Why is that cool?" You know what I'm saying? Because if I were, say Nigerian, if I was Sudanese, say, what would the difference be? You know what I'm saying? I'm here.
Well,
You know
I
what I'm
think
saying?
it's a
I,
difference.
I found a life, what I'm saying, for myself. And I'm trying to make best of that life. You know what I'm saying? And I think that one of the biggest problems is that we confuse what, or we confuse the idea that being expatriate or spatriato, as they say here in Italy, with immigrants being immigrato here in Italy, as being two things which are totally different, which they aren't. You know what I'm saying?
I
I can
mean,
find that refugees and immigrants are different, but even still, I think that, what I'm saying, we've been immigrating and we've been finding refuge. What I'm saying, throughout our history. What I'm saying, as being Homo sapiens.
for sure, but I think just I think on the face of the definition, yes, immigrants and expats are the same. But I just think the way they access the country is a little bit different. Whereas immigrants tend to be in a group of people who are fleeing a country, and they tend to be, a group of them, and then a group of them. Whereas expats tend to be solo travelers, such as yourself, that come to a country. And I think a lot of times the expats, and there's a lot of expat anti-sentiment also. So a lot of people in a lot of places, such as like Barcelona. I know people who are natives to Barcelona don't like the expats.
No,
So
definitely.
because I think a lot of expats don't integrate, but historically, seem like the expats tend to integrate a lot more with the locals versus a lot of immigrants. Especially in France, it's really bad where a lot of the migrants, well, I guess they're not even immigrants anymore, but like they're like second generation immigrants, but they still don't interact, and they have a lot of animosity toward the French locals. So,
Mhm.
and I'm sure it's a lot. I'm sure some of that's going on also in Italy, right?
Well, the thing is, like, I would say that it hasn't arrived quite it has had such a quite or impact as it has had in France, like you said. But I think that's the reason why, because there was this Africa Franco, or this Franca freak, as they called it. You know what I'm saying? Where, where you had a lot of French, or the French. What I'm saying, they kind of colonized a lot of territories: Burkina Faso,
Mhm.
Senegal, Nigeria, and a lot of other places. What I'm saying. And I'm not going to go into the dynamics of it, because, like right now, a lot of these places are hotly disputed. And we kind of even touched grounds on this. What I'm saying, I think maybe 5 or 6 podcasts ago. But I think that's, unfortunately, you know, what sells to the public, kind of like, like, for example, like I said, I want to go back to what I said before. How many times have I said to people, yeah, I'm from Detroit, or Detroit area, what I'm saying? And they're like, "Oh, okay, so you're American. Okay, that's cool." Like, and so if
Mhm.
I wasn't from America,
Mhm.
and what I'm saying, the same skin tone, would that be very different? What I'm saying? Like, no, but because, what I'm saying, because everyone have these preconceptions, these ideals, these
Prejudgments, yeah.
judgments. And you can't blame that individual person, but you can blame, what I'm saying, either their parents, or 2 or 3 generations, saying, back. What I'm saying? And it's one of the same things that we have going on in America.
We always feel like,
Where,
especially like with the Mexicans, if you're Mexican, and you come into a country, people can tend to look down on you, thinking that you're an illegal immigrant. But if you're like from a Scandinavian country, and I think even
they're
Trump
like, okay, yeah,
joke about
it's
that, like
okay.
we let the Scandinavian country come
Yeah,
in. But if you're a white Mexican, you can pass as not being a Mexican too, and that
yeah,
just and then you can kind of maybe not tell people what your heritage is and what your ethnicity is, and you can get by. I mean, and so it goes beyond just the fact that you're a migrant or an immigrant
okay,
or expat, whatever you want to call it.
okay, okay,
That's also a factor, especially if you tell people that. But I think it's also a factor, your skin color
yeah.
and where they perceive that you come from. I guess that's part of where you come from. like the
because
first part.
that's one of the first things that they can see. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
but they
I
call it
mean,
the first
and I
thing they
hate
can.
that.
Yeah,
I hate
so,
that's
like
the fact. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? But that's one of the first things that they see. So as a
yeah,
result,
mhm,
they you know say they I don't want to say they judge you because, for example, I'm not gonna lie to you. You know what I'm saying, Rich? I've been always on the positive side of judging, and that I know that's because I am American. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
And and I'm not gonna say that that perturbs me,
mhm.
but it bothers me that saying that so many people can actually see things that way. Saying that okay, you're saying okay, oh, I thought you were saying Nigerian, I thought you were Kenyan, saying I thought you were Ethiopian. Oh, you're American, okay, that's cool, but why is it cool though? You know what I'm saying? Especially because of the fact, if you think about my history, what I'm saying, I'm not the coolest of Americans. You know what I'm saying? I've been to, I've been in conflict. You know what I'm saying? And that's one of those things that I don't want to really get delve into. But what I'm saying, but I've not been a purveyor of of peace or prosperity. You know what I'm saying, and yes, I am from that country that that so many people idolize. You know what I'm saying, that saying that hip hop lifestyle, or saying people like, oh yeah, America's been, saying they're so cool, saying 200 years they've been able to go from racism and slavery to, saying to electing, saying a black president, saying, but these are steps, saying, and that's an individual story, all of us have an individual story. And I think that's one of the things that people forget when it comes to immigration or being a refugee, what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That they forget that everyone has a different story, because even refugees, like you said before, a lot of people get confused with, saying like, people who come from these war torn countries, or, saying, let's not talk about the climate change refugees, saying people coming from countries or areas where, where landmass has, shrunk, saying
Mhm.
considerably in the last 10 or 15 years due to, saying American, the Western, say Occidental, or, saying, or Chinese or Indian, saying effect on global climate change, saying so many people have been displaced because of this, what I'm saying? And
What I think. Go
yeah,
ahead. I think
go
that's the
ahead.
I think that's the hypocrisy. People want globalization so they can get cheap iPhones and stuff like that, but
I
they
mean,
don't.
yeah, that's what Dave Chappelle said. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to spend $9,000 on an iPhone. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. People want to pay like $400 on a new iPhone, but it comes at the at the cost of like polluting our planet and causing people to force to move. And then once these people
Exactly.
that come from these countries now live in your country, like, what you doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but no, definitely. I mean, I think that's the case. But at the same time, we have to think about the fact that it's how we have to look deeply into saying into who we are. Saying as individuals. You know what I'm saying?
but
You feel comfortable. You feel comfortable with saying with recycling your trash or your rubbish. You know what I'm saying? Or separating your plastics from your papers and your compost. You know what I'm saying? But if that compost, plastic and paper all finish on the same island in Nauru or in Guam, and you don't care about that, what I'm saying? That becomes, you become hypocritical in that case. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
We all become Pontius Pilate, washing our hands, saying, you know what, I've done my part. I don't have to think about anything else. You know what I'm saying? And I think that bodes over as a very, very significant message as to who we are as a civilization, as a people.
Well, I think a
That
lot of
we
people just do things because and then it's kind of like going through the motions in life almost. Like they
Okay,
just do things because you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, but they don't really understand the essence of things. Like you
okay,
shouldn't pollute, not because it's bad for United States, but it's bad for the entire world.
okay,
This, you got to look at behind things. You shouldn't. People like say you shouldn't like maybe use you should be inclusive to people because it's good to have people of all ethnicities around for you, not because it's just like the in thing on Instagram or something like that.
okay. Exactly, exactly.
So like people,
But
I think a lot of people are just and most people are followers, and that's the way it's always been in society. And I think maybe in our next evolution as a species, maybe we can start developing more of more leadership type skills in the job with everybody, but I think even our job market is showing that now. There's like more independent contractors and more entrepreneurs than ever before. So long gone are the days where you work for a factory for 40 years of your life, or the
Mhm.
same desk job for 40, 50 years of your life. You have to kind of be an entrepreneur, independent contractor to the day to survive in today's market. So that's
But how
hopefully,
sustainable is that, though, Rich?
well, I think that's the way it's going now with
Okay,
everything now.
okay.
It's like the whole workforce is starting to become independent contractors because the big corporations like that. They don't have to pay insurance.
Excuse me.
They don't have to pay anything. They can fire and hire people much more quickly.
Mhm.
Especially in America. I know, and there in Europe, it's different labor laws, so and it's harder to fire people because you got to pay for
They're,
their
exactly, exactly. But at
yeah.
the same time, they're cons to it too. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these companies are kind of chokeholding their workers, saying like, "Yo, where are you gonna go?" You know what I'm saying? We have our labor laws. You know, saying you have your union. We're you know what I'm saying, we're respecting your union. Okay, bro. So where are you gonna go? You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it kind of like it plays against us here also
Yep.
when it comes to the workforce. To the
Yeah.
productive workforce.
Well, you know what? I asked this question. We always talked about like all the locals hating on the immigrants and migrants, and even the expats to some degree. Well, what
Okay.
do you think the expats and migrants and immigrants could do to assimilate more with their environment? Because I lived in Koreatown for a
Huh?
while in Los Angeles,
Okay.
which is kind of like a big subset or big subpopulation in LA. It's probably
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Koreatown in LA is the biggest Korean population outside of Korea.
Yeah.
So, but my landlord was like in her 60s and she couldn't even speak English, and she's been in America for like 40 years. And it's
Okay. Yeah.
do you think a lot of times immigrants they just come to these countries with all their cousins and nephews and best
No.
friends and whatnot, and they don't even try to even learn the language of that country, and they kind of like a lot of times they isolate themselves from other people, and they're kind of like they have that me versus everybody mentality, like Detroit versus the world type
Well,
mentality. Right?
I
And
mean,
it's
well,
like,
that's one of the things that we talked about. Saying I
yeah,
think 7 or 8 podcasts ago, we talked
yeah,
about saying that inclusion, be
mm,
that inclusionism or that exclusionism.
yeah,
And I think that saying a lot of saying these different cultures, they go to a city, they go to a very populous urban area like New York, like Los Angeles, like Detroit, saying like Toronto, Montreal, etc. And I think that they saying they try to sow roots in those areas, which is not bad, saying, especially if we want to promote, saying immigration. We want to promote people being able to 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 bring their story
mhm,
into our news story and create a news story. You know, and I think that's always been being able to accept um, immigration has been always that. I think that the ideal of immigration for me personally is that you taking your story, you're taking your society, you're taking your culture, and you're bringing it here, and you're trying to integrate it with this story, this society, and this culture. And you're creating a new society, culture, and people. And it's been like that. I mean, even if you look at saying a lot of the Italian Americans, saying you have grandparents who saying who came to America in the Al Capone days or the Carlo Ponzi or what's his name, Carlo Ponzi, so Charles Ponzi scheme days.
mhm,
You know what I'm saying? In the early, just before the Great Depression. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm saying, they brought their culture. That's how we have our little Chinas. That's how we have our little
mhm.
Italy's. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. And I think that's beautiful. What I'm saying? But the thing is that when we don't accept, what I'm saying, and a lot of those people who came here or came there or went there where you are now in America, um, they never learned the language. They never learned the culture because they brought their culture, what I'm saying? And it was their offspring who were to, what I'm saying, to bring that new culture. It's kind of similar to what we did, what I'm saying? Uh, we can't lie,
Yeah, but
even
I
our
think my
mom was
mom was different.
never
My mom
rude.
kicked it with it. My mom, we kicked it with black people, we kicked it with white people, we kicked it with Middle Eastern people. You know, we lived a very multicultural. We had a very multicultural network of friends growing up.
We did, and
Yeah,
in fact, I still have a very
yeah,
multicultural.
exactly. Yeah, so that in Michigan, in Detroit, that Detroit area is, and especially when we were growing up, it started getting really multicultural. Now it's super multicultural, but like
Okay,
then we were
no,
like
no, no,
we were at the very when we were in high school. We were at the very beginning when like the big Middle Eastern population came in. A lot of definitely
exactly,
black whites. My mom,
exactly.
all her Filipino friends, but everything. Everybody. We were cool with everybody.
You know, definitely,
That's why
definitely.
we were raised. And mom integrated with everybody easily.
Yeah. No,
And but she still kicked it with her Filipino friends, and I think that's great. Like that's the best of
that's
both worlds.
important. That's important. You know, so you
But
still have to keep
a lot of people, a lot of immigrants don't do that. They just hang with
it.
their peeps,
Mhm.
and that's it.
Mhm.
They don't hang with
But their
anybody.
children,
They don't.
usually second generation. Usually, you know,
Usually
what
the
I'm saying,
second generation,
you know,
but
they
sometimes
use
they.
their second generation
But
as
then
the
the second generation,
translators, as you know,
yeah,
what I'm saying, and things like that. You know, what I'm saying, because like you
for
said
sure.
before, a lot, you know, what I'm saying, a lot of Italians who immigrated to America, and a lot of Irish, when Irish,
Mhm.
they speak English. You know, what I'm saying, as a default, even though that Gaelic, that Irish,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
even calling it. Was his name the MMA fighter?
Oh, not Ewan McGregor.
Even McGregor. I mean, even McGregor. Oh,
Well,
right. So, so even when they're speaking to Irish
Conor
guy,
McGregor. Conor McGregor. Yeah.
yeah, Conor McGregor, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, so many, you know what I'm saying, we, the Russian Americans coming in, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and today, you know what I'm saying, like I said before, same shit, different toilet, you know what I'm saying? We have the same situation, but with a different mask, with a different, you know what I'm saying, different
Mhm.
situation. But things are different, you know what I'm saying? And the thing is, I think that what happens is that we find that, especially in America, and I will have to say this, you know what I'm saying, and you know what I'm saying, I speak downly on humans in general, you know what I'm saying, but and I rarely speak downly on America because you know what I'm saying, I love America, you know what I'm saying, even though it doesn't sound like it, but or it doesn't seem like it at times, but but I think that what I'm saying, America, we figured out that what, we have enough immigrants, and that's what happens a lot of times, even here in Europe. You know what I'm saying? There were times in the last 15 or 20 years, and I've seen this transition happen also here in Europe, where there are lots of immigrants that come in from, say either they're what can I say? We said there are the climate change refugees, war torn immigrants, saying, or people who just want to live better because they think that in Europe it's better, you know what I'm saying? Um, and I noticed that, saying that it's kind of like, bro, it's kind of like, yo, we already have enough niggas here, you know what I'm saying? And that's basically, what I'm saying? I hate to sound so reductive about it, but that's the way
Yeah.
it sounds, you know what I'm saying? And the same thing that happens in America. You can't tell me that, like, yo, Mexico come through, they're like, no, nigga, we got enough niggas here. We don't need any
Well,
more,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I think especially
You know
like
what I'm
in
saying?
post World War II, a lot of these colonizing countries like Europe in Europe,
But
like
we
England.
colonized them.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm
The,
saying
the Americans, the French, the Germans,
yeah, I'm
you know
saying,
what I'm saying? The whole,
but
the
I'm
Dutch
saying
and the
during
guys
post World War
colonized them.
II, they had a call to action. They wanted all those people to come in for work as
Exactly.
workers, but now they don't
Exactly.
need them anymore because everything's became streamlined and roboticized over the years,
Exactly.
and
So they're
now
like,
with
we don't need
AI
any
and all
more
that stuff,
niggas here, nigga.
they don't really need them anymore. So.
We don't need any more niggas. You know what I'm saying?
You don't
We
need
don't
any
need
more.
y'all
They don't
anymore.
need
You know what
like
I'm
the
saying?
French
So
don't need
you can go
any more
back. You know what I'm saying? But it's
Tunisian.
kind
They
of
don't need more
difficult.
Tunisian people or Algerian people there. So
Exactly. Exactly. So what do you do in that case? So that's what I'm saying to Rich. You know what I'm saying? We talk about immigration. You know what I'm saying? What do you do in that case? You know what I'm saying? You've spent, saying generations. You know what I'm saying? When we think about the French, the Dutch, the
mhm.
Brit. Let's not talk about the British, the Americans. You know what I'm saying? The Americans have been recent in the past, 80 years, but it's more recent past. You know what I'm saying? The Italians. You know what I'm saying? When we think about how many places that they've conquered, you know what I'm saying, colonized, you know what I'm saying, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Burkina Faso, Tunisia, Morocco, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And
Mhm.
let's not talk about Central Africa and South Africa, India, you know what I'm saying, even parts of, the Himalayas, you know what I'm saying. How can you say after so long that, you know what, we wanted you guys because we needed somebody to, saying, to I don't know, to kiss our ass or to saying to fluff our pillows, whatever the case is, saying. I'm not trying to, I don't want to get into the details of, saying what was expected of immigrant, but now they're like, you know what, we don't need like I said before, and I hate to say that, say it sounds very reductive the way I'm saying it, but they're saying like, we don't need you niggas anymore.
Yeah, I
You know
mean
what I'm saying?
that's
That's one of the harsh realities.
that is the harsh reality. So, but the thing is, moving forward, you know, I think just in general, our whole societies need to learn to have more compassion for our community, because like
Uh-huh.
everybody's part of the community, no matter what you are.
Everyone is.
We have so
Exactly.
much of an individual society. Like I'm doing well, I don't give a fuck what anybody else is doing. But everybody.
Mhm.
I mean, real community is you're only as strong as your weakest link. So
Mhm.
we need to,
Mhm.
as a whole society, we need to start adopting that type of mentality.
Okay.
And B, I think I think also it's the other side. I think the immigrants and the migrants, they can be more and try to get more engaged and involved into their new environments too, and like learn the ways of the world in that environment too. So it can be a meeting of the two, but it's always tough when both sides are at odds with each other. So no
Mhm.
one wants to take that first step forward. But us as I mean, I consider myself American. I welcome all people, immigrants and stuff in our country, but I want them to be like trying to be a part of our country too, not be like an outsider inside of our country. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. And like
No, no, definitely. No, and
and
I
I
feel what
want,
you said about that.
and I think everybody, if you're physically and mentally he can, you got to be able to hold your weight in the country. Like if you don't have the tools or the skill set to be productive in our country, you got to develop those skill sets. Take the initiative to do that. You know,
Exactly. Definitely,
and
definitely.
I think that's it. And a lot of those, a lot of immigrants sometimes they don't have any jobs, and some of them do turn to crime. I'm not saying that everybody turns to crime. Black people, white people, it doesn't matter. So, but
All right. Well, this is one of those topics that I think we should go into. Saying more depth, not even one more time, but even multiple times. How do you feel when we think about, because now I'm going to say something that sounds very controversial. Your boy Donald Trump talked
Mhm.
about you know dangerous immigrants, and
Yeah, it's like,
recently, in the past year or so, there
mhm,
have been a lot of dangerous immigrants, especially in the New York area.
for
Um,
sure.
so,
Well,
so,
some of that
so
stuff some of that stuff is
should we say
embellished.
he's right? Should we say he's right? You know what I'm saying?
Well, some of that
Some of
stuff
it's
is
right, like you
embellished.
said.
I
Yeah,
mean, like the movie Scarface is people think is fictionalized, and it was fiction, but it's very accurate what happened to the Cuban refugee crisis
exactly,
in the
exactly.
late '70s and early '80s in southern Florida. They came there, they couldn't find jobs, so they just became straight gangsters because like it was easy
Yeah,
for them to sell coke than for them to get a job washing a
exactly,
car. so
exactly, exactly.
so you know, I mean, that's kind of and that's a byproduct of a kind of a flawed economy that we have too, especially in Western world and in particular in America.
Mhm.
Where where it is not, at least in Europe, it's definitely a little bit a stronger form of socialism. So you do kind of, even if you're weak or not weak, or you just come from a disadvantage, we'll try to help you come up a little bit in life. But in
Mhm.
America, it's like sink or swim. So if you can't get a job anywhere else, I'm going to start selling drugs or I'm
But
going to
it's
start
always been
robbing.
that way, though, right? It's always been that way in America, though, right?
I'm saying it's always been that
Find,
way in
find,
America.
find the most profitable, find the most efficacious way of of coming up. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. It's about coming up. Yeah.
Right. But so in that case, then why should we look downly on those guys? You know what I'm saying?
No, we should. I'm saying that they're a product of they're a product of capitalism at its purest form. There's no question about that. They're like
But
even Donald
say
Trump.
you
Donald
can't
Trump.
say that it's cool. You can't say it's cool that saying that people saying that people going to shops, like a lot of shops in downtown Brooklyn are like closing because they're like we can't deal with like saying like people just coming in our shop and like stealing shit. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, no. I mean the homeless people doing that in San Francisco too, and they're
yeah,
closing down shops.
exactly, exactly. I mean,
So,
I
like,
mean,
is that a byproduct of immigration or a byproduct of a flawed economy?
no,
That's too
definitely of a flawed economy and a failed system. Definitely,
that, that
definitely.
that's
But
that's that's way too capitalist, and now it's not even capitalist anymore. It's oligopolist because there's only a
yeah,
few companies that are just kind of like controlling the whole markets for everything.
yeah,
So there's a lot of people in the stock market is blowing up. It's at record highs all the time, and some people are making
yeah.
more billionaires are coming out of nowhere. But Same day, the average human being in America is can't afford more. I mean, they're making the same amount of money, but inflation is 25% higher than
Exactly,
over the
exactly,
last two or
exactly,
three years. So
exactly.
it's like,
Yeah,
damn, it's like now it costs $300 for me to get groceries, what it used to cost me 150, and I got a family of five.
exactly,
So
exactly, exactly. Right.
what
You know
the
what I'm saying?
fuck?
Yeah, it's like a person's trying to get by before. Yeah. So yeah,
Mm,
the system definitely doesn't, say it doesn't, say it doesn't promote,
yeah,
a fluid, efficacious,
yeah, yeah.
how can I say, um,
What
execution of things. But it,
America, we had that good balance before. 'Cause I think a lot of our economists and a lot of our policymakers emphasize on trying to bring up the middle class. You know, we
uh
believe that
but when do we have that? When do we have that?
like
Was that the period where
post World
we
War
weren't
II.
accepting so many immigrants?
No, post World War II, and we were accepting a lot of immigrants, but there was a lot of jobs then because like
Okay,
everybody had factories post World War II,
okay,
and there was
okay.
factories at GM,
But
Ford.
everyone had factories here, but but okay,
Even in
yes.
Europe, there were factories all over Europe too. Like Europe was
But
growing too.
we're thinking about a globalized world at that time. So globalized doesn't mean Europe and America, because there was
Yeah.
South America that was suffering. When I tell a lot of people, I tell a lot of people that from 1935 to
Mhm.
1980, Michigan, which is our home state, contributed to 17% of our GDP in America. You know what I'm saying? It, you know,
Yeah, no, for sure.
and that's 1/5 basically. If we think about Michigan's main breadwinner was Detroit. You know what I'm saying? We had a total of 1.7 million people working in Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, and another 6.3 million working in, saying, in jobs that supplied these companies. And you think about 9 million people, saying constantly. When we think about, saying Motown, what
Mhm.
saying was founded, saying, because like with you, saying you moved to Los Angeles, because Los Angeles was where, saying was where a lot of economic growth was moving. Saying, because we all know that um, whenever it comes to to be prosperous, it means that the economy must move. Saying, not that you have a lot of assets, but that those assets are moving. I'm saying, and think about it.
It wasn't
Saying,
stagnant. It's
most a
not
lot of
stagnant.
people, most a lot of people in 1980, like y'all moving. Saying, with the NAFTA plan, the North American Free Trade Agreement, by saying by Reagan, and then saying, kind of like push forward with Bill Clinton. Like, okay, Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, like, you know what? We don't need these suppliers in Michigan. We can go to Canada or to Guatemala, Mexico, or Costa Rica. You know what I'm saying? It, that kind of created this collapse, this implosion. Like, either now I'm going to sell drugs or I'm going to do drugs. You know what I'm saying? That's
Mhm.
why Detroit became such a, such a crime ridden city. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening in New York at the moment, is that New York, that prosperity that was once present and prevalent is no longer there, and a lot of people, including immigrants, and unfortunately, like you said before, I agree with you completely, Richard. It's not the immigrants that are only committing these crimes. There are a lot of homeless people that are creating these crimes. Homeless people who have been American citizens, 2 or 3 generations. You know what I'm saying? Not only the Argentinians or the Venezuelans. You know what I'm saying? There are a lot of people who are committing these crimes. People going to, saying, in Starbucks or into Luce or Dolce and Gabbana and stealing like 2 or 3 dresses. Like, yo, I'm gonna sell this shit on the streets. You know what I'm saying? As real. And I think that what happens is that, what I'm saying, as you said before, a very, very, very vast sense of consumerism comes through in a system which isn't prepared to handle true consumerism. You know what I'm saying? At a global